Today we'll start with socio-cultural anthropology. Define anthropology. Anthropology. Holistic study of holistic and interdisciplinary study of humans. That's it. Holistic and interdisciplinary means you are studying every aspect of humans across time and space. So basically we are focusing on evolution and variation. How humans evolved biologically and why are there variations? Although we belong to the same race, there are some people, the population which are fair, populations which are dark, populations which are short, populations which are tall. So why these variations and how these human variations evolved? Reasons behind these variations. How humans evolved biologically and why are there biological variations across different regions? How humans evolved culturally and why different societies have different cultures? Why variations in the culture? Not every society have the same culture, right? Not every society conducts marriage in the same way. How they evolved psychologically and why are there variations? Biological and cultural evolution and variation. This is what we'll study in anthropology. So this is a scope of anthropology, right? So let's start with, what do you mean by scope? All those areas we'll discuss associated with anthropology. That is a scope of anthropology, right? We'll start with culture. What do you mean by culture? Culture ante way of thinking, way of life. Way of life ante way of life means decode louder. Living style ante enti? Living style, way of life ante enti? Day to day activities ante enti? Em activities? What culture tells us? What is culture? Way of life. Very simple. Way of life ante enti? What culture tells you? Culture tells you how to live. Culture tells you how to think. How to behave. How to eat. What to eat. Anything else? How to dress. Whom you should marry. How you should marry. Whom you should worship. How to worship. Right? So tell me, what your culture tells about life, how to live? Nothing but it tells you some values. Give me examples. How to live according to your culture? What values your culture teaches you? What values? Steal and eat. steal from others and eat, then work hard, non-violence, peace. Some cultures will teach that. Peace, non-violence, kindness, right? Rightful living according to dharma, do your duty, justful living, right? These are some values according to which you have to live. Do hard work, smart work, don't copy, right? అంత స్పెసిఫిక్ గా కాకపోయినా జస్ట్ అదే ఉంటది కదా. It tells you how to think. How to think. How to think. It tells you how to think. Example చెప్పండి. Examples. Come up with examples. See, if you don't come up with examples, this seems very boring. Does your culture tells you how to think? Yes or no? If I do some crime, God will punish me. This is your thought process. It tells you not to think in a bad way. Even the thought of killing someone or harming someone will give you a bad fate. Yes, it will tell you how to think. Think positively. There is God with you. God will guide you. So don't think in a negative manner. I'm not talking about what we are doing. I'm talking about what culture is telling you. Think like this. Hate this group of people or like this group of people. Kill those group of people. It is telling you how to think. Your belief systems are formed by this thought process. Right? Next. How to behave. Culture tells you how to behave. How? Whenever you see the elders, touch their feet to greet them. Behavior. Don't talk back. When elders are speaking, you should not talk. You should not question. Behavior. So it is controlling your behavior. Right? Culture is telling you how to behave. Right? Culture is telling you how to eat. Example? Cheto. Some cultures, yes, what to eat also. Some cultures, they use chopsticks. Some cultures use spoons. Some cultures use hands. So it is telling you how to eat and what to eat. Some cultures say, don't eat non-vegetarian food. Don't eat beef. Don't eat dogs. Those which you can eat and which you cannot eat. Culture tells you this is way of life, right? These are day-to-day activities. Your day-to-day activities are designed by your culture, which is transmitted from your parents. It tells you how to dress. This is your traditional dress. This is the ethnic, today is the ethnic day, ethnic dress. Who is telling you this is your traditional dress? Culture. Sari is your ethnic dress. Or something, dhoti is your ethnic dress. Right? Worship. Whom you should worship? One God, multiple gods, specific God. How you should worship? You have elaborate rituals, sacred things, kobbarkai kottal. Right? There are certain rituals, customs, మంత్రాలు కూడా ఉంటాయి. స్పెసిఫిక్ ప్రొసీజర్, స్పెసిఫిక్ టైమింగ్ కూడా ఉంటుంది. రైట్? కల్చర్ టెల్స్ యూ దిస్. Whom you should marry? You should marry a stranger. You should marry your cross cousin. Cross cousin అంటే తెలుసా? Who is your cross cousin? Your father's sister's children will be your cross cousins. Your mother's brother's children will be your cross cousins. Cross cousins, Baba Maradadu. They are potential mates. You can marry them. Who are parallel cousins? Your father's brother's children are parallel cousins. They are your brother and sister. And your mother's sister's children are your parallel cousins. So they are your, again, brothers and sisters. No, you cannot marry them. You cannot marry your parallel cousins, but you can marry your cross cousins. Who is telling that? Culture. Your parallel cousins are your brothers and sisters, and your cross cousins are your potential mates. Culture is telling this. How you should marry? You have elaborate rituals, right? There are a lot of things involved in a marriage. Elaborate procedures, customs, traditions, gift exchange, money exchange, many things happen in a marriage, termed as an institution, right? So this is way of life. This is culture. Culture is regulating every aspect of your life. Understood? So what does this culture have? Norms, beliefs, traditions, institutions. What are norms? What are norms? Norms are there? Prithvi? Procedure? Procedures are rituals. What are norms? Norms are there? You have to follow these norms. Rules. They are basically do's and don'ts. They are the rules that determine what is appropriate, what is inappropriate, what is the acceptable behavior. You have to follow these do's and don'ts. They are specifically prescribed. You have to do this. You should not do this. Specifically mentioned by the culture. Right. Beliefs. Give me example of norms. Eating non-vegetarian food. Certain groups, they should not eat non-vegetarian food. This is the norm. Right. Okay. Next, any other norm? Any other norm? You should not criticize the God. Norm. Beliefs. What are beliefs? Belief systems. Give me an example of a belief system. Belief system. Yes, that is a tradition. What is a belief system associated with that? Right. Wash away the sins. If you take dip in the holy river, that wash away your sins. Yes, that is a belief system. Kudikalu petti munduku raavadam. Belief system. So we consider certain things, certain events as auspicious. Like on Akshaya Tritiya, you have to buy gold because throughout the year there is prosperity in your family. That's a belief system. You don't have a logic in that. You don't have a proof for that. And you don't even question that because norm. You should not. Right? So these are some belief systems. Give me some examples. Examples of belief systems. Same. You take a holy dip to wash away your sins, your diseases. Animal sacrifice. Exactly. People go for animal sacrifice just before the war with a belief that by giving sacrifice to the goddess, they will win the war. That's a belief. Right? Belief systems. Traditions. What are traditions? Festival is an example of a tradition. What is tradition? Define tradition. Exactly. Traditions are those customs which have been coming down from several generations. They are followed from several generations. As a result, we are practicing it. We are conducting that ritual or custom as a tradition. There is no logic in it. We are following a custom because it is coming down from several generations. Let me take one example. There is a tradition in the tribes in the eastern India where it was a festival, Jatra telusu kada? So it was a festival. So to that village, people from everywhere, every nook and corner of the country, residents of that village will come to that village on that festive day. So what they do, this is a hill, they go to near to the hill and they roll huge boulders. They take very huge boulders and they start pushing these boulders up here. And from there, they leave the boulders. So the boulders roll down and they fall onto the ground. Again, the process continues. So this is a festivity. People come here, they dance, they drink, they eat, and they continuously do this activity. What is the rationale behind this activity? What is the rationale? What is the logic behind this tradition? So when a person was asked what is a logic, so they told that, see, by doing this, see, we used to have a godfather in our community, the originator, our ancestor, the first person in our community. That person, he died. And on the fourth day, by listening to the sound of these rocks, he woke up. And because of him, today we are surviving. So this is a story they told behind this tradition. Clear? So an anthropologist was very curious to understand the origin of this tradition. So after his inquiry, after his case study, after his field work, everything, he came out with his thesis, the original reason behind this tradition. So the ancestors of this community, very old people who started, the original people who started this community, they don't know the reason behind rain. They don't know the reason behind lightning, thunder. See, they don't have any reason. They don't have any scientific knowledge about how it rains, how it floods, right? So they realized one thing. This is their observation. So before rain, there is thunder. Thunder gives sound. Yes. So this is their understanding. So whenever there is sound, there is rain. So let's create sound. How will you create sound? Take the boulders up and leave the boulders. So when the boulders are rolling down, it created a huge noise. So they did this in the expectation for rain, because early man doesn't know the laws of nature. He doesn't know how rain falls, how rain is created. So only thing he observed is that whenever there is sound, there is rain. If you want rain, create sound. In the due course of time, people forgot the actual reason. When there is no reason, the next generations, they will not continue the tradition. So they created a myth around this tradition so that the tradition keeps going on. In the due course of time, the real reason behind this tradition has been lost. No one knows why this tradition has started after 50 to 60 generations. But when people keep questioning, right? Because our cognitive capacity has increased. We know the correct laws of science, correct laws of nature. Now we will question that. So to keep the tradition alive, they have innovated a story, cooked up a story that is called myth. Myths are created to keep the traditions alive. పెద్దవాళ్ళు ఏం చేసినా ఆలోచించే చేసి ఉంటారు. This is what we keep hearing when we ask about a tradition. ఏం ఆలోచించారు పెద్దవాళ్ళు? వాళ్ళ సిచ్యువేషన్స్ ఏంటి? వాళ్ళ సైంటిఫిక్ నాలెడ్జ్ ఏంటి? I'm not criticizing all the traditions. Not all the traditions are illogical. But what is their cognitive capacity? At that point of time, they don't have any knowledge. So they created this and we are continuing this. But we have knowledge, we have the capacity. And what are the norms? Don't question the traditions. Simple. Right? Understood the tradition? Which has been coming down from several generations, irrespective of the logic. So these traditions are cultural survivals. They survived even though, see, in a particular environmental conditions, these customs were originated. Today, we don't have such environment. The environment has changed completely, yet we are continuing these traditions as survivals. So these traditions, they outlived their environmental situations, their environmental context, right? Institutions. What are institutions? Okay, first let's understand what is a ritual. Ritual ante? What is a ritual? Specific procedure. Suppose you have to do a puja. Oka puja cheyali. You will have a ritual. First you have to take bath. అప్పటిదాకా ఫ్రిడ్జ్ లో పెట్టిన కోకోనట్ దేవుడి దగ్గర పెట్టగానే సేక్రెడ్ అయిపోతుంది. Sacred. Things associated with the God will become sacred. It became sacred because you have taken a ceremonial bath with certain mantralato, Vedic hymns, right? You keep some flowers, then you will break the coconut. So, ఒక ప్రొసీజర్ ఉంటుంది. ఫస్ట్ ప్రసాదం తినేసి పూజ చేయకూడదు. పూజ చేసిన తర్వాత ఆ ప్రొసీజర్ మొత్తం ఫాలో అయ్యి అప్పుడు లాస్ట్ లో ప్రసాదం తినాలి. సో దీస్ ఆర్ రిచువల్స్. యూ హ్యావ్ స్పెసిఫిక్ టైం. అర్ధరాత్రి లేసి పూజ చేయకూడదు. దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ బ్లాక్ మ్యాజిక్. దట్స్ అ డిఫరెంట్ థింగ్, రైట్? వీఆర్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్ రిలీజియస్ రిచువల్స్. సో డెఫినెట్ టైం and definite procedure, and it should be performed by a definite person. పూజారి వచ్చే చేయాలి, right? What is an institution? Institution is a group of rituals. Suppose marriage అనేది ఒక ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అయితే చాలా రిచువల్స్ ఉంటాయి. There are several rituals in marriage. All these rituals form institution. A group of rituals like marriage. Religion అనేది ఒక ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్. You have so many rituals, right? So this is culture. Understood what is culture? And why do some people believe that their culture is the only way of life? My way is a highway type. Give me an example. Yes, this is the only correct way of life. You should not eat certain type of food because in our culture, eating that food is a taboo and that is right. So they try to impose their culture on others' culture. So you should also not eat that type of food. Example, beef ban. In our culture, we don't eat beef and our culture is correct. So you should also stop eating beef. Some societies, some groups believe that their culture is superior to others' culture and others' culture is inferior. For example, consider polyandry. So in Hindu society, it is okay for a man to marry multiple women. Okay, one woman and he can carry multiple relationships. It is okay generally. Generally, I'm talking. So, but it is not okay. It is seen as a stigma if a woman does the same thing. If a woman is in a multiple relationships with a man, or if a woman marries multiple men, right? So this is the mainstream Indian culture. But there are certain tribes in India where a woman marries multiple husbands and all the husbands are related by blood. That means brothers. One woman marries multiple brothers. So how will you look at this? How will you look at this? Is it derogatory? Does it look inferior? Same thing, personal experience with me. When I moved to Delhi, so there was a family. So they asked about some of the relationships in my family, relatives. There was one marriage in my family, so they asked about it. So both the bride and groom in my family are related. They are cross cousins. So when I said that, they immediately commented saying that, will you marry your brothers and sisters? No, cross cousins are not our brothers and sisters. Only parallel cousins are our brothers and sisters, I told that. She said, no, any cousin is a brother and sister for us. You should imagine the look on her face. She's assuming that, so in South India, people will marry their brothers and sisters. So it took me hard time for me to convince her that cross cousins are not our brothers and sisters. So just imagine the way people think, react when their culture is different from others' culture. So she is imagining brother and sister only. So one way is not the only way, is not the best way. This happens in Todas. Toda tribe, where one woman marries multiple brothers. All the brothers in that family marry only one woman. How will you understand or evaluate this practice? It is not derogatory. It is not derogatory like the mainstream Indian society. So this custom is rooted, or this tradition is rooted in their environment. So these people are living in the hilly regions, Todas. They are pastoral people. Pastoral means they depend on livestock. No agriculture. They don't know how to do agriculture. They don't know any type of commercial activity. Since several generations, they are following this pastoralism. They depend on buffalo. They worship buffalo. And if they want grains, they will trade buffalo products with the people in the plain areas. They'll come to villages. They will trade the buffalo products and they will buy some grains. So completely they are dependent on buffaloes. And in search of pastures, they move from one place to the other place, semi-nomadic. So they don't have enough resources with them. They have so entire economy is surrounding around this buffalo. So what happens if a family has 4 buffaloes and the family is surviving with that 4 buffaloes and they have 5 children, 5 sons. If 5 sons are married separately, then they have to divide that 4 buffaloes. Now that makes the survival of the family very difficult, right? They cannot survive together because that brings scarcity. Because now 5 sons will have 5 wives, 5 wives will have children, and family will double, but income will not double, resources will not double. That results in food scarcity, and finally someone have to die of food shortage. So to avoid that, all brothers will marry one woman. So because of that, the fertility rate is very low. Fertility rates are very low, and in these societies, female infanticides are also high because they see women as a source for reproduction. So more the population, that will make the resources scarce. So in such type of societies, the female infanticides are high and the women population is less. So you cannot go for one woman for each. Right? Here you need not divide the property. Now they remain in the same family and they'll get the food also. So you have to understand their environment to understand their tradition. You should not judge their traditions. Every tradition has its roots in its history and in its environment. So study that. This is what anthropology says. Understand their culture from their perspective, not from your perspective. Right? Because your culture is different. The way you look at things is different. Others' culture is different. When you want to understand others' culture, get into their shoes. Understand from their own perspective. Understand their history, why they have to come up with such an institution. Understand their environment, why they have to come up with such a situation. Only then you will understand. You will not judge. Right? Non-judgmental appreciation of cultures come when you see from others' perspective. This is the hallmark of anthropology. We call this as emic perspective. So we are not going into technical terminologies. Right? Okay. Next, society. What is society? What is society? Group of people. Any group of people we call a society. Group of people. Add. I need some add-ons. Right. Having a common culture or a shared culture. The group of people having the same culture, the way they eat, the way they dress, almost same. And that's it. living their own lives? Group of people with the same culture living their own lives? Then what is important? What keeps people together in a society? Culture. Shared culture will give you rules, do's and don'ts. Okay, you are following it. What makes people to stay in a society, to live together? Culture. Why will you follow the norms? Why should you follow the norms? Why should you follow societal norms? Tell me, why should you follow societal norms? You are born free? Yes? Why should you follow societal norms? Because you want to live in society? Why do you want to live in society? Why do you want to live in society? I don't care about society. I don't care what others are saying. We keep saying this, but we do care. Why? Why? Why do you want to live together with certain norms when you are born free? Why? ఆలోచించలేదు ఇప్పుడు. Humans are inherently selfish. మనకి ఏది బెనిఫిట్ అవ్వకపోతే అది చెయ్యం. So we are benefiting from society. What is our benefit? What is our benefit? We are dependent on others. If you want help from the others, first you have to help others. Right? Interaction. So this is bringing relationships. Relationships sustain societies. People follow norms to remain in the society because you are interdependent on others. What society gives you? Everything you want. Recognition, respect, right? Goods, services. You need society. So you have to follow the societal norms. So whenever you are irritated, don't keep saying that I don't bother about society. You do bother about society. You live in society. And your day-to-day activities are dependent on the members in the society. Right? So these are the group of people with a shared culture, common norms, right? Common belief systems who are living together, depending on each other, interacting, cooperating to maintain that harmony in the society. So now tell me, which is more important, society or culture? Society is more important. Can society exist without culture? Which is more important, Prithvi? Society or culture? Society with culture? Which is more important? Both are interdependent. So society is like body, human body. Culture is like soul. Without soul, there is no purpose of human body. Right? So we need both society and culture. Then what is civilization? We keep saying human civilization, Indus Valley civilization. Why are we not saying Indus Valley culture? Why? Civilization ante way of life. Culture ante way of. We keep hearing all these terms, right? Culture, civilization, we use interchangeably. No, they are different. What is culture? What is civilization? Developing thoughts ante. Civilization is economic term. Like ante మరి కల్చర్లో ఎందుకు వాడుతున్నాం ఇండస్ వ్యాలీ సివిలైజేషన్ అని? Culture and civilization. Change from organic society. Culture ante society ya, civilization ante civilization is developed. Statement బాగుందనా? Culture evolves into civilization. For example, take Hindu culture. Initially, when the culture has started, we have several restrictions like sati, right? There are so many restrictions on women. Not just that, like Dalits should not enter temples. But today, do we have these norms? No. Why? It started borrowing elements from others' cultures. So, for example, in Buddhism, after Buddhism and Jainism, with the advent of Buddhism and Jainism, Hinduism reformed a lot. There are no strict principles, there are no strict customs, not everything is ordained by Brahmins, and there is also entry of Dalits into the temples, and women restrictions on women have also been eased. So here, the religion is borrowing certain elements from others' cultures and it is evolving into civilization. Civilization is the apex stage of a culture. Culture indicates it is growing. When it is growing, it reaches the peak stage, climax stage called civilization. Once it becomes civilization, it will not borrow elements. And that's how civilizations will collapse. Civilizations disintegrate. You will grow as long as you are adaptable, as long as you accept others' point of view, as long as you evaluate other options. But once you close your doors, you will disintegrate. That's how the greatest civilizations in the history have been vanished as they stop growing. Understood? Civilization is a mature stage of a culture. When culture matures by borrowing multiple elements, it reforms, it evolves and forms into a civilization. Right? Right. So we have done with, so in society, we have different group of people. So these people, they have specific role in the society, specific status in the society. So our societies are not egalitarian. We don't see everyone equally. Yes or no? We, in the sense, general society, not aspirants. In general society, we don't see everyone as equal. There is division in the society. There is stratification in the society. What is a stratification? Based on caste. So this person belongs to lower caste. This person belongs to higher caste. Right? Based on class. They belong to high class. They belong to low class. So everywhere in the society, it is stratified. It is divided. Earlier, we have started with an egalitarian society, equal status society. But today, the society everywhere is divided on the lines of caste, gender, occupations, right, class, etc. Understood? Right. Now the interesting topic. Yes? Marriage. Right. Define marriage. Is there a universal definition of marriage? Give me your definition of marriage. Social contract. It's a contract between, marriage is between, right? Between two families who will marry. Between two persons, male, male, female, female, male, female. Any specific details? It's a contract, okay, between two individuals. Okay, individuals can be of any gender. Can I take individuals of any gender? Right, between two individuals What is a contract? Contract means what? For staying together? Okay. Two individuals are writing a contract to stay together. How long? Lifelong? Really? Right? Together, I mean cohabitation. Okay. Living under the same roof. Next. What about the children born to them? Children born to them are legally and socially recognized. Right? Okay. Legal and social recognition to children and also to their contract. Anything else? So it is a marriage between two individuals. Just now I told you about one woman marrying multiple husbands. So this definition doesn't fit. Okay, now refine. This is not the universal definition of marriage. Give me the definition where every practice, every marriage practice in every society fits in this definition. Reproduction, okay. Between whom? Tell me that first. Fill this blank. Between two genders, like male and female. Okay. In African communities, females will marry, males will marry. So that definition doesn't, that practice doesn't fit in this definition. Right? Now tell me. Give me one comprehensive definition which covers all types of marriage practices in every society. Shall I say the answer? Options? There is no universal definition for marriage. No. There is no universal definition of marriage. Then how will you understand marriage? Marriage is understood from its functions. Marriage is understood in terms of rights and duties exchanged in this tradition, in this institution. What are the functions of marriage? Functions. Why should you marry? What are the functions of marriage? Functions of marriage? Channelized mating that reduces sexual competition in the society. So you don't have fear. Right? Next. Society is peaceful. Next one, reproduction. With marriage, you will have children. You can continue your lineage, Vamsam, Gotram. You can continue your lineage. Enculturation. You will teach your children about your culture. So your culture also propagates. Right? You can continue your culture for next generations also. Enculturation. Next best option, economic cooperation. Right? There is an economic cooperation between the spouses. So, when the female partner is conceived, she cannot gather food, she cannot work hard, so she will get the cooperation from the male partner. There is a cooperation. So these are some functions, major functions of marriage. That is the reason why marriage as an institution still exists today. It creates emotional security, it creates security to the family and also sexual security. So that is the reason why, although there are several disabilities with this institution, it is still continuing today. Right? Tell me, how marriage as an institution is changing these days? Why it is changing first? Do we have the marriage as an institution the same? No, it is changing. Why? These are the functions of marriage, and these functions are fulfilled by other institutions other than marriage. Sexual gratification fulfilled by other alternatives, other institutions. Children, no need for enculturation. The present generations are not following the culture. How come you will teach culture to the next generations? Economic cooperation, everyone is financially independent. As a result, the divorce rates are increasing. And what is happening? You can see new forms of marriage like live-in relationships. So the partners or the people are running away from responsibilities. Yes or no? New forms of marriage is emerging. Right? So what all the economic transactions are involved in a marriage? Economic transactions. Marriage is not just a function, a social function. It is also economic function. It is also political function. Marriage determines who will take the decision, who will lead the family, true or false. Political, it is becoming a political institution. It is becoming an economic institution. What will you get? What will your family will get? What will I will get? So here again, it is becoming more of economic and political institution than a social institution. Right? So here there are certain exchanges happening during marriage like dowry. Along with the dowry, you also have to provide gifts to the kids, relatives. So there is a hierarchy. Closer the relative, expensive is the gift. So what happens? What is the purpose of these marriage payments? Why do you think they started marriage payments? ఒకప్పుడు స్త్రీధనం అనేవాడు, ఇప్పుడు కట్నం అంటున్నాను. Tell me, how did this marriage payment started and why it started? What do you think? Definitely ఒక ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్ వస్తుంది, ఒక ట్రెడిషన్ ఉంది అంటే it has some roots. At that point of time it is valid in that environment. But today it is just a survival. It is outliving its environmental conditions. ఇవాళ అవసరం లేకపోయినా దాన్ని యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాం ట్రెడిషన్ పేరుతో. So what is the original purpose of marriage payments? Let's take dowry. Dowry was given by and to whom? By? Okay. Bride, groom. So tell me, what is the purpose of dowry? It is originally, when it originated, it was given by the bride's family to the bride. But in the due course of time, now it has converted where now the bride's family is giving this payment to the groom just to help them to settle after marriage. They used to give this to the bride, but now it became a social expectation and also a social demand, right? So there are different theories that explain the origin of dowry that we'll discuss in detail in the dedicated chapters. Right. Next, let's talk about family. And one more interesting topic is, who will you marry? How will you get your potential mate? See, there are certain rules. Every culture will have rules which tells you whom you should marry, whom you should not marry. Both rules. Whom you should marry? Whom you should marry? You should marry your cross cousin. There are rules like you can marry a person of your own caste, or you should marry a person of higher caste, or you should not marry a person. A woman is not allowed to marry a man from lower caste, because a woman gets a caste status either from her before marriage from her father and after marriage from her husband. So if she marries a man from the lower caste, she will lose the caste. This is called hypogamy. This is a Hindu tradition written by Manu in Manu Charit, Dharma Shastras. Yet, so, but a woman can marry a man from upper caste. She will be elevated to higher caste, right? So there are certain rules whom you should marry, whom you should not marry. You should not marry your parents. You should not marry your siblings, right? How will you get a mate then? Every society will have a certain tradition deciding how will you get a mate. So in Hindu culture, how will you get a mate? After the calculations of parents. So primarily they are arranged marriages. You should not even see the bride, you should not even see the groom. They should not see each other. So there are certain norms. But culture has evolved into civilization, and so that we have got many more progressive elements. So in certain societies, the groom have to prove his valor, his bravery to get the women he want. Different traditions we'll discuss in detail, right? Next, family. Define family. How families are formed? Marriage forms family, right? Blood relations. All the blood relations forms family. Friends, not family. Define family, right? Is there a universal definition of family? No, there is no universal definition of family. But there are functions of family. We understand family from its functions. What are the functions of family? Economic cooperation, reproduction, children, teaching the culture, enculturation, etc. So these are the functions of a family, and we have different types of family. Like, based on the structure, we can classify the families as joint family, nuclear family. What is a joint family? Giant family. So what are the characteristics of a joint family? Tell me. Joint family ante? Large family ante pedda illana? At least, okay, 3 generations are living together. And 3 generations living together. What else? Give me some examples or characteristics of a joint family. Married children living with their children in one family. So it is a giant family. So many people living in this joint family. So they have a common kitchen. All these members, they have a common kitchen, common place of worship, and also common property, undivided property. The property is not divided. And earlier, joint families, they have an advantage. What is that advantage? Even there are lazy people, joint family will feed them. Family is a primary unit, economic unit. So majority of the joint families are into agriculture, agricultural societies. So agriculture needs more labor. That more labor is supplied by joint family. So even if 10 members don't work, rest of the 20 members will feed that 10 members. So there is an emotional support, there is an income support in this joint families, emotional security, and it doesn't matter whose children. Everyone will take care of everyone's children, right? And here you will have a strict patriarch, one old person in the family. Irrespective of others' opinions, he will decide about the fate of their children, right? And there are severe restrictions on women's freedom. They are restricted to certain places in the family, like kitchens, right? So these are some characteristics of erstwhile joint families. Today, do we have joint families? Yes? Today, do we have joint families at the same frequency? Same? Nothing changed? Might be? See, you are saying, in words you are saying might be, but when I ask, yes, as if you have been surveying the entire villages in India. In villages, joint family systems are declining. Joint family systems are declining in villages. And nuclear families are increasing. Why nuclear families are increasing? What is a nuclear family? parents and unmarried children forms nuclear family. So why nuclear families are increasing? Tell me why nuclear families are increasing, or why joint families are declining? Because of decline in agriculture. So job opportunities. See here, joint family is no more the primary economic unit. You need not depend on your family for your food, right? You have multiple opportunities outside, provided you have good education and skill. Even though you don't have good education, you can live in urban areas. More job opportunities, more mobility. It is easy to communicate and easy to move, travel from one place to the other place. More mobility, more job opportunities. Now you need not rely on joint family. Modern education, economic independence now. Financial independence also brought social independence. You don't depend on others. You don't even tolerate others telling you what to do. Yes, we believe that we are mentally able, mentally sound, and capable to take our own decisions. So, the control of the strict patriarch reduced, and because of the increased mobility and opportunities, what happened? The old restrictions have been eased. People started to move out wherever it is easy to live, wherever you find some income. Rise of feminist movements, also one of the reasons for declining joint family systems. There is a rise in the feminist movements in the recent past. Right? We have two types of feminist movements: moderate feminism and radical feminism. Moderate feminism, they fight for equal rights. Extreme or radical feminism, they fight against the institutions because they believe that men are the reason for their struggles. So, ban all those institutions that promote discrimination, like marriage and family systems. That is radical feminism. Right? Okay. Next, kinship. What do you mean by kinship? Relatives. Who are your relatives? How do you relate yourself with others? Through blood? Blood relationship? Yes or no? Blood relationships. And you also relate to a group, not just because of blood relationship, but just because of a common ancestor. I told you, people who belong to the same clan, they believe that they are brothers and sisters because they believe that they are the descendants of one person. They came from the one person. So, people who all have the same gotra are brothers and sisters. So, this is one group. This is one kin group based on the common ancestor, and this is one kin group based on blood relationships. Don't you have kin groups other than these two? No? No blood relationship, no common ancestor. Can there be relatives? Marriage. Affinal groups. When you marry to the other person, that person, you don't have any relationship, blood relationship, and that person doesn't belong to your ancestral group. That means he belongs to your affinal group. Because of marriage, that person became your relative, kinship, kin member. Right? So, how we call our kin members is also important. In some societies, we use the same term to call the kin members. For example, Amma, Peddamma, Chinnamma. Amma is the same thing. We use the same term. But in some societies, they use different terms. చిన్నమ్మని ఇంకొకలా పిలుస్తారు, పెద్దమ్మని ఇంకొకలా పిలుస్తారు. So how we call our kin members also indicates the importance or priority we give to our relatives, kin, right? And kin behavior also. So we behave differently with different kin members. We behave in a jovial way, in a joking way with our mother side relatives, and will be very serious. No jokes with father side relatives. So this kin behavior also tells us about the social structure. Why do we behave in a jovial and joking way with mother's relatives, and why not with father's relatives? Why? Have you ever thought? I'll tell you why in our class, main class. That tells you about the social structure. Why we behave in a specific way. See, we joke with the cross cousins, but we behave properly with our parallel cousins. Difference. And we call all our parallel cousins as sisters, and we use a different term to call our cross cousins. So that itself, that terminology indicates that whom you should marry, whom you should not marry. The behavior indicates that whom you will marry, whom you will not marry. There is an avoidance behavior between the mother-in-law and the son-in-law. There is avoidance. So they have to maintain dignity. They should not talk too much. These are some customs, traditions sustaining in some cultures. There is an awkwardness between father-in-law and daughter-in-law. They should avoid. They should not talk much. These are some customs that are prevailing in the society, in some societies, right? So kin behavior, kinship terminology is very important. And what is the significance of kinship? What is the significance of kinship? Relatives. It gives you some rules as to during marriage, who should receive more payment. Your close kins, your primary kins will get the more payment, and a moderate payment will be given to your secondary kins, and a less payment will be given to the tertiary kins. Why? What is the purpose of paying during the marriage? See here, there is a gift exchange between the kin members of the bride and kin members of the groom. Lot of gifts are exchanged. So when the marriage breaks, they have to return all the gifts, whatever gifts they have taken. So it is not possible, right? So that is the reason why the kin members will ensure that both the partners stay in the relationship. So it is not easy to break marriages because huge economic transactions are involved. You know what type of gifts are exchanged? Animals are exchanged. In some societies, cows are exchanged. Hundreds of cows are exchanged. So it is not possible to return all the cows if the marriage breaks. So the kin members ensure that the marriage continues. So whenever there is a problem, they will come for panchayati. They will become the head to solve out the marriage issues. So that is the reason why in primitive societies, marriages used to sustain. So what is happening? What is the importance we give to kin members today? Even if the person dies, we'll know after 1 year that the person is dead in our family. So there is a weakening kinship relationships. So friends are becoming family, and family members are becoming alien. There is a competition between family members. So my brother is doing that, so I have to do this. You're a family, right? So the bonds are weakening. So we don't have this much of support. That is the reason why marriages are also failing for even small disputes. There is no support from the families. Understood? Kinship is important to determine where the couple should live after marriage. Whether they have to live with the father side relatives or mother side relatives. Rules of residence is determined by kinship. If it is a patrilineal society, men-dominant societies, then the bride has to move with the groom and she has to live with groom and his relatives, groom side relatives. And if it is a matrilineal society, Then the groom has to move with bride's family. Matrilineal or patrilineal depends on whose contribution is more to the economy. If it is a hunting and gathering society, men contribution is more. So it will be a patrilineal society. If it is a horticultural society, women contribution to the economy is more. Example, northeastern societies, Khasi, Garo tribe are matrilineal tribes. So here women contribution is more to the economy. So that society is matrilineal, where the groom has to pay bride price for the bride, and also he has to move towards the bride's place. These are the institutions which are derived from the economic and political practices in that region. Understood? And these rules also determine property, how the property transfers from father to son, or from father to daughter, or from mother to daughter, or mother to son. We have different types of practices that we'll discuss. How property flows. Right? Next, economic organization. Economic anthropology. So this here we'll understand what is the economic behavior of a primitive man, what is the economic behavior of a modern man. What do you think if you have to buy anything? What is your thought process? Tell me. You want to buy something. You want to buy biryani. What is your first thought? You have many options. What is your thought? Or you want to buy AC. What is your thought? Price? You will check price. 10 షాపులు తిరుగుతారు. సేమ్ ఏసీ 1.5 ton 3 star కంపేర్ చేస్తాం. ప్రైస్ ఎక్కడ తక్కువ ఉందని చూస్తాం. సో వీ వాంట్ ఎఫిషియన్సీ, తక్కువ ఇచ్చి ఎక్కువ రావాలి అనేది మోడర్న్ ఎకనామిక్ బిహేవియర్ ఆఫ్ అ మ్యాన్. నెక్స్ట్ ఇంకా పార్ట్నర్షిప్ ఉంది. సపోజ్ యు ఆర్ 2 partners. You are working partner and the other person is a sleeping partner. So you have to work. When you get the profit, you have to share, and that person will trust you blindly. What will you do? నిజాయితీగా ఇస్తారా తన షేర్ ని? నిజాయితీగా తన షేర్ ని తనకి ఇస్తారా? He will not even check the records. ఇస్తారా? No, I don't believe that. Personal gain. What will I get if I give you this? This is a thought process. This is a thought process of economic man, modern man. So what is economic behavior of primitive man? Economic behavior of primitive man. Suppose, assume that you went for hunting very hard. Okay, hunting kaadu, nee perspective తీసుకున్నా. For 1 week, you tried very hard. You have studied the entire reference book, all the reference books for anthropology, and you made a short note. And in that exam, 5 questions have come from that short note. And you scored, you got a rank. Next year, మీ notes ని ఫ్రీగా ఇస్తారా స్టూడెంట్స్ కి? మీ notes ని ఫ్రీగా స్టూడెంట్స్ కి ఇస్తారా? Or you will market that notes with proof. What will you do? What will I get in return? ఇంత కష్టపడినప్పుడు you expect something in return, right? This is modern economic man, right? He will always think, what will I get out of this transaction? Now let's look at the economic behavior of a primitive man. What will he think? What will he think when he goes for hunting? It is very hard, very tough job. He doesn't have even the scientific equipments like guns. So he has to do with primitive tools. So after all that hunt, he'll get one animal. Now he will not store that animal. He will share. No storing, only sharing. Why? Why? He can store that, right? Tomorrow he need not work. He can eat the same food. Don't say he doesn't have a refrigerator. No, that is not the reason. Someone said this actually in my previous batches. When I asked why, they said, early man doesn't have a refrigerator. But he has knowledge. He can store if he wants to store with his knowledge. Right? So for him, money is not important. For him, society is important. Social relationships are important. In the earlier societies, the people have face-to-face relationships. You know their name, you know their birth date, everything you know about the other person. The other person is your kin. So here they value relationships. They don't value money. What do I get? Suppose if you have an opportunity, to earn 10,000 per hour, will you work? If you have an opportunity to earn 10,000 per hour, easily, will you work? But primitive man doesn't work that way. There are certain tribes like Khasa tribe. They work only for 2 hours in their farm. And rest of the time they will enjoy. They'll spend the time with the community. And they will have a bindas life. They will work only 2 hours in their farms. And they don't use plow. Without the plow, using digging sticks. They use farming, cultivation. Because they believe that the earth is their mother. So they don't want to use plow on the mother's heart. So that is their belief system. Looks stupid, right? But it's not. They work only for 2 hours. Whatever produce they get, they will share among themselves. And they live happily. And they die happily. Without regrets. So this is a behavior of a primitive man. They risk their life. They sacrifice their life to promote their relationships. Social relationships are important for them. Here, we kill others for our life. This is the mindset of the modern economic man. So there are several differences that we'll understand between primitive man and the modern economic man. Right? This is economic anthropology. Political anthropology. Political anthropology. This studies about the evolution of political systems. So how political systems evolved? Initially, what is occupation? What is economic activity of the early man? Hunting and gathering. So he was primarily dependent on nature. So this early man, when he was hunting and gathering, so he has to lead a nomadic life. He has to move from one place to the other place in search of food. Right? So what happened when he is moving from one place to the other place? So suppose they want some water. Someone says you have to go this side. Other says you have to go this side. Other says you have to go straight. Whom you should follow? Who will take the decision? Who will lead the group? So he is living in a small group. It's not possible for a person to hunt. So they live in small groups and they move from place to place in search of food and water. So who will guide this group? Who is the leader of this group? There is no permanent leader. Everyone are equal in this group and everyone are related by blood. Very small group. So here an expert will come out. See, I've been through this path already and I know, or I can track certain animal footprints. So this is a way. So I can lead the group. So that person will come, he will lead the group. And suppose they are looking for both food and water. So this group splits into 2 different groups. And one expert will lead this group, one expert will lead this group. And finally again they'll meet at one place and they will eat and they will drink. So these are small groups. So who will decide? An expert, a situational leadership. When situation changes, leader also changes. There is no full-time leadership here. When the situation arises, a person comes, either he can be an expert or an elder person in the group who has seen many situations. He will lead the group. So eventually what happened? Groups started to split and they started to live at a specific place for a long time. Semi-nomadism started. When semi-nomadism started, so every group will have one leader. The entire tribe doesn't have single leader, but the groups will have a leader, full-time leader. Understood? This is one type of political organization. Next, eventually what happened? Agriculture. People started cultivating because of agriculture. Now you have surplus production, more production. And what happened? Now you started living permanently at one place. Now you have to protect your food and you also have to protect your area. For this, you have to choose a person to protect you and your area, your products and your area. You have to choose a person. And what will that person will get? You have to pay something to this person, right? And that person will take care of your needs. So eventually, this chief became king. And finally, as the society became more and more complex. Now here, everyone are under agriculture. So occupational diversification started. Few are into agriculture, few are into metallurgy, wood crafts, ship making, etc. The society turned into complex and evolved into a state. Today's state formation. So this is how political organizations evolved with the time, with the changing complexity of society. Understood? Next. In the older days, when the early man was living, so there is no law, there is no police, there is no prison. There are only norms, social norms. Even though people used to abide these norms. Why? We have laws, we have police, we have enforcement agencies, yet we violate laws. But in the earlier societies, people used to abide by the norms. They don't have any laws which are codified. They have customary laws, social norms. But people never violated them. Of course, there are certain occasions, but majority, on an average, they used to abide by the norms. Why? How this social control is maintained? How social control is maintained? Tell me. Fear of God. So if you do see, in those days, there is no difference between crime and sin. Everything is a sin against God. So, fear of God is one factor that made people to comply to the social norms. And whenever people violate the norms, they are branded as witches, sorcerers, mantragatte and cheppi chettu katte champesevaru. So that is the reason why, out of fear, people used to abide by the norms. Even if you violate norms, then people used to mock publicly. Chevulu korukunevallu. He did this, he did that. See, early societies are egalitarian societies. If any person is earning more, what will happen? That creates a division in the society, right? If one is earning more, one has more resources, that creates a division. Now this person will have more resources, other person will have less resources. Yes or no? So to avoid that stratification, they used to go for mockery. People used to mock. వాడెవరినో చంపేసి వాడు డబ్బులు తీసేసుకున్నాడని. That is not true, right? But people used to spread rumors. They used to mock. So to avoid that, what they never pile up their income. They'll never increase their income. They will maintain that egalitarian status. Earlier societies have several mechanisms to maintain egalitarianism, equality in the societies. So if anyone committed a crime, how will you establish the guilt? How will you establish the fact that you committed the crime? Ela establish chesevallu? So you have to undergo certain process. So suppose there are two people who are accused of a crime. So now they will bring poison and they will offer the poison to both the people. Whoever survives, that person is the innocent. Whoever dies, he is the guilty person. And God killed him. It's not God actually. The poison killed him and his weak immune system killed him. Right? So, these are certain methods to establish the guilt if there is only one person. Need not prove he is guilty. Everyone know that he did the crime. Now, how will you punish this person? Social boycott. See, these early societies are very closed societies. So here, everyone is dependent on the other. Everyone is related by blood. So everyone wants respect from the society. So what happens when you are proven to commit a crime? Then there is a punishment like social boycott. No one will cooperate with you. No one will talk to you. No one will give anything to you. Alienation. So that is more torturous than this, than killing. Right? So to avoid such things, people used to follow the norms. Although you don't have any enforcement agencies or prison type of setups, people in the early societies, they follow the norms, fearing all these practices. Right? So this is political anthropology. Religion. Religion, what is religion? This is the last topic. We'll end it here. Define religion. Religion. Religion has rituals. Marriage has rituals. Define religion. Religion అంటే ఎవరు గుర్తొస్తారు religion అనగానే? God, కదా? Belief in supernatural is religion అంతే. Belief in supernatural. You know how religion emerged? Initially, we used to have magic in the society. This is not my theory. This is James Fraser theory that we'll discuss in detail. Initially, in the early society, there is magic. What is magic? You don't know how it rains. You don't know how it rains. But you know that there is a law that controls nature. Right? That causes rain. You don't know what is that law. Then what will you do? Spells. Mantralaki chintakayal ralali. You go with spells, certain rituals, and you go to a magic practitioner like sorcerer, witch, and you try to get rain. So this is magic. This is primitive society. So then over a period of time you realize this doesn't work. Right? Then the society evolved. It looked towards religion. Now this magic practitioner with his chants, he was not able to cause rain. So now there is someone who is controlling rain. That someone is supernatural power. So you will ask, you will appeal to the supernatural power for rain. Poojalu chestam. We'll go to the priest. We'll appeal to the supernatural power that this year there should be a good rain. This also didn't work. And human cognitive capacity evolved. New streams of knowledge has evolved and we understood the correct laws of nature through science. It's not magic, it's not religion, it's actually you have to go for cloud seeding, for rain. You understood the correct laws, right? So this is how society evolved from magic to religion to science. But along with science today, scientists, they break the coconuts, they worship God for successful launch of satellites. So religion also coexists with the science. This is a question they have asked. What is the place of religion in modernity? So according to Fraser theory, magic is replaced by religion and religion is replaced by science. No, that did not happen. Religion and science are coexisting in the modern society. This is what you have to write. Right? So tell me, how religion evolved? What are different types of religions we see? There are many theories which explain the evolution of a religion. There are different forms of a religion. Some societies believe in soul. They believe that nature has soul. Rivers have soul, so they worship rivers. Nature has soul, trees have soul, so they worship trees. Do we worship trees in Hindu culture? Hindu culture is no more a culture, it's a civilization. So do we worship trees? Do we worship rivers? Do we believe in soul? Do we believe in soul? Namutama namama. Example? Example? Do we believe in soul? మనిషి చనిపోయిన తర్వాత కాకికి ఎందుకు పిండం పెడతాం? వై? ఎందుకు పెడతాం పిండం కాకికి? Because we believe that after the death of the person, the soul leaves his body and enters the crow. Yes. So we believe in soul. See, all these forms, they were the like leftovers. So it started with soul worship, and there are certain communities which also worship objects. Some communities worships words. Why? Why some communities worships words? Because they believe that there is some supernatural power in this word. That word was used by Chhatrapati Shivaji. So his power is present in that word. So before going to war, they worship that word. Right? We have different names for these worships. And some societies, they worship animals. Kantara movie chusara? They worship wild boar. So they believe that supernatural power, at some point of time, some societies believe that that animal protected their community. Early man has used to live in forest. So the ancestors of that community were protected by that animal. From then onwards, they don't kill that animal, they don't eat that animal, they worship that animal, and also they tattoo that animal on their bodies also. Right? We have different names like totemism. These are different forms of religion. And some religions, they say believe in one God. Some religions say believe in multiple gods. Monotheism, polytheism, right? And anything which is associated with God is seen as sacred. Anything. The same water. But చెంబులో పోస్తేనే, శంఖంలో పోస్తేనే తీర్థం. It becomes sacred as long as it is associated with the God. The same water which comes away from the God becomes secular. So anything which is associated with the God becomes sacred and secular. There are certain rituals, there are certain myths associated to continue the traditions. Right? So this is religion. Any questions? So this is just a trailer about socio-cultural anthropology. Regarding each and every topic, we'll discuss in depth in the dedicated classes. Right? Any questions? Understood? How do you feel? Boring? Right. We'll continue tomorrow. Thank you.